It's early on a Tuesday morning, and we have a new Lane Johnson injury update to get to from head coach Nick Sirianni. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Appreciate all of you for being here with us. I'm obviously coming at you from the at-home studio because anytime there's a big Eagles news item out there or an update that we have to discuss, we talk about it right here on the show. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're about 300 people away from 58,000 subscribers. We'll also be going live right here on the channel today, Tuesday, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. I hope that all of you decide to join us. So according to Jeff McLane of the Philadelphia Inquirer, Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson suffered a grade 1 lateral sprain on his right ankle after undergoing an MRI on Monday. Nick Sirianni was on the radio on 94 WIP this morning to recap Philadelphia's loss to the New York Jets from Sunday as the Birds suffered their first defeat of the season, and he confirmed that this Lane Johnson injury is not a long-term injury. He said, quote, "Lane is doing everything that he can to play in the game this week against the Miami Dolphins," and he added that they will have a better idea later in the week going into Sunday Night Football. And the team originally feared that Lane Johnson could miss an extended period, even though those x-rays came back negative after he left in the first quarter of the Eagles' 20-14 loss to the New York Jets. And yesterday on Eagles Now, we discussed the potential impact of a Lane Johnson injury. Very simply put, since he was drafted out of Oklahoma during the Chip Kelly regime, when Lane Johnson plays, the Eagles have been one of the best teams in football from a win-loss record standpoint. When he is not on the field, it shows. And the impact is really felt for this Eagles team because they really struggle with wins and losses when Lane Johnson has been injured. He's the best right tackle in the game, one of the best right tackles in the history of football, and one of the top overall tackles in the sport. And he has had a long injury history throughout his career, but he's been an Iron Man of sorts. He's extremely tough, and he can really hold it down on that right side of the line of scrimmage. And you saw against the Jets, who have a really, really good defense. They're fast. They're physical. They can fly around from sideline to sideline. I really like their scheme from Robert Saleh, who came to New York when he was with the San Francisco 49ers. They made it to the Super Bowl in 2019. They had a bunch of dogs, and the fingerprints from that style of defense has translated to other teams across the league, and it does give some top-tier offenses some fits. And I'm not a fan of how Robert Saleh hasn't accomplished anything as a head coach in this league, yet he said some ridiculous things about embarrassing quarterbacks this year. I like how you can have a little bit of swagger and confidence, but can you do something as a head coach before you walk around like your ish don't stink and you're one of the top coaches in this league? Because you're not. Quick rant right there. But either way, when Lane Johnson is not on the field, the Eagles' offense really does regress, and they struggled against the Jets without Johnson. His replacement, Jack Driscoll, really struggled to protect Jaylen Herz, who was running for his life all throughout the afternoon. And I think that directly impacted Hertz late in the game where he just wasn't seeing the field. You know, I went back and watched the film, and there were multiple reads in which Jaylen Herz missed. And the one interception to Quinnen Williams that bounced off of Dallas Goedert, that's not on Jaylen Herz. The last two picks were on Hertz. And now he has 7 picks. That is more than he had all of last year. And the pressure seemed to get to him throughout the course of the day. And it was kind of a cumulative effect where as the game wore on and the Jets continued to get pressure and they gave the Eagles offense multiple defensive looks, that's when Hertz started to get confused throughout the duration of the ball game, and Jack Driscoll's inability to protect Hertz on the right side of the line of scrimmage was an implication of that. Driscoll gave up 8 pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, and in 43 snaps, he gave up 1 sack, 1 quarterback hit, those 8 pressures, and 6 hurries. To put that in perspective of how good Lane Johnson has been, since 2020, Lane Johnson has played 1,312 snaps. He has given up 0 sacks and 3 quarterback hits. Week 1, there was a play where Lane Johnson took the inside route and allowed Matthew Judon to get to Hertz, and Judon got the sack of Herz. And I thought originally that maybe Lane Johnson was going to get credited with giving up that sack. He didn't. So Lane Johnson has still not given up a sack since 2020. And that's really wild when you think about the large body of work, the great edge rushers that Lane has played against and faced up against throughout his career. To give up 0 sacks and just 3 quarterback hits since 2020 goes to show you just how elite he is. And when he's on the field, as I noted a little bit earlier, Eagles are simply a much better team that has far more success running the football and throwing the football. And when Lane Johnson plays, the Eagles win a lot of games. When he doesn't, they don't, and they struggle. Philadelphia, 84-48-1 in his career when Lane Johnson plays. When he misses games, they are 13-22. Put that into perspective as well when you talk about the impact of number 65. And since 2016 specifically, because since that moment, there's been a little bit more injuries as compared to his first few years in the league. In 2016, he missed 10 games. Eagles were 2-8. In 2017, 1-0. 2018, 0-1. 2019, 3-1. 0-1 in the playoffs. 2020, Eagles were just 2-7. That's when the ankle injuries really started to rack up for Johnson. In 2021, 1-3, and then last year, 1-1. Since 2016 specifically, the Eagles are 10-22 in games in which Lane Johnson does not play. This year, according to Pro Football Focus, he's putting together another great season, and that's why Howie Roseman gave him that contract extension last year. They got confirmation that Johnson wanted to play for a few more years after lightly flirting with retirement, and this year, 382 total snaps, 213 pass blocking snaps, 1 penalty, 0 sacks allowed, 2 hits, and 8 total pressures. Simply put, this is the best right tackle in the game, and the Eagles' offense just looks and feels different when they have the confidence of number 65 at right tackle. And this Jets loss really does make this Dolphins game that much bigger. The Eagles are about to enter the meat of their schedule. It gets really, really difficult. When the schedule came out, you're thinking, man, you got to go up to the Meadowlands. You're playing against Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be a difficult game regardless because of that defense and Aaron Rodgers elevating that offense. Zach Wilson is just not good. I'm sorry. He's just not good. And the Eagles' defense was great against that Jets offense. The Jets only scored 1 touchdown in garbage time when the Eagles let them score a touchdown. Other than that, they really struggled to move the football. This loss for Philadelphia is on the offensive side of the ball. Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson with play calling, play design, with game planning, with execution. The red zone issues continue, and Jaylen Herz has taken a step back a little bit as compared to last year, and I think that this Eagles offense is missing Shane Steichen a little bit. And now you lose this game against Miami, or you lose this game against New York, and if you lose against Miami, that's 2 straight L's. You're at 5-2. The Dallas Cowboys got a big win on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. They're now 4-2 going into the bye, and that game in a couple of weeks against Dallas, it's probably going to determine who is in first place in the NFC East. Now, more notes to get to from just all of the discussion points here. You know, if Johnson does have to miss time, Nick Sirianni has been an advocate and a big fan of Jack Driscoll. He can still play at right tackle. Historically, Driscoll has played better when he has a week to prepare as opposed to playing in a pinch. And again, going back to this Dolphins matchup, like, this Eagles defense is really, really banged up. There are injuries everywhere. And the Dolphins are averaging the most points per game in the NFL. So this is not going to be easy. And the Eagles could, if Lane Johnson has to miss some time, you move Jordan Mailata potentially from left tackle to right tackle. They've done that before. And then Fred Johnson, Tyler Steen, maybe they could play a little bit of left tackle. Tyler Steen does have some experience playing right tackle, even though primarily at Vanderbilt And at Alabama, he played on that left side. And with Johnson, we know that he's dealt with the share of injuries throughout his career. 11 years in the league. He's been great for the entire duration of it. The most significant injury that he has suffered, that left ankle sprain that caused issues for like several years for him. And when he initially returned, he wasn't the same guy, had to undergo surgery to kind of get things corrected, 2 surgeries to repair that ankle. So anytime Lane is suffering from ankle injuries, it is cause for concern. Last year, he missed the final 2 games of the season with that core muscle injury, held off surgery, returned in time for the postseason. He was dominant. Didn't allow a sack in the playoffs. He shut out the Defensive Player of the Year and Nick Bosa in the NFC Championship game. And that sackless streak does go all the way back to 2020. Elsewhere on the Eagles' injury front, X-rays were negative on Reed Blankenship's ribs. He took that really vicious blindside block from Alan Lazard, and Jeremy Fowler said that the X-rays came back negative. The team will be cautious with its leading tackler. He leads the team with 39 tackles, but a good sign so far. What's a bad sign is that the Eagles are so banged up at safety. They had one healthy safety at the end of that game. It was Terrell Edmonds, who frankly is not very good. Sidney Brown continuing to deal with that hamstring injury. Justin Evans was out because of that neck injury. So this Eagles defense right now, and Lane Johnson banged up going into what becomes a massive game against the Miami Dolphins, who only have 1 loss this year. That loss came to the Buffalo Bills, and their offense has been straight up humming. And this Eagles defense very, very banged up, not just in that secondary, like all across the board right now. So wanted to pass along the latest on Lane Johnson early on a Tuesday. I appreciate all of you for waking up here with us. Make sure you join us today, later on, 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, Eagles Now Live. Plenty to discuss. We'll be taking your questions as well as giving you some interactive, informative, and insightful content. Of course, go Phils, go Birds, and we'll catch you in a few hours here on the show.